This is a story that I flew with the enemy. Actually, I flew for Japan Airlines as a flight engineer. And one day, we were flying out of Tokyo down to Honshu. We flew over Hiroshima. Hiro is many and Shima is island. It's because of many islands that they've named it. And the town is built back up again now, and it's a beautiful country. And I was flying with a Japanese captain. And as we flew over it, I looked down there and I said, isn't it a shame that they didn't drop this atomic bomb in the inland sea rather than on Hiroshima? It would still damage those things enough to probably have stopped the war and wouldn't have killed anybody. And he looked over at me and he says, Harold, he says, don't ever be sad about dropping the atomic bomb, because he said if the invasion of Japan was coming, and it was coming, we already had Okinawa, they were going to line the beaches with their women and children because of the sentiment that the American people have over women and children, and they were going to have to walk over them to get to the military. Now this comes from a man that at one time was a complete kamikaze believer. He couldn't hardly wait when he was young to be chosen to fly a kamikaze trip, which is a divine wind, but it means certain death. And when the bomb dropped, and by the way, if they hadn't dropped the second bomb, it wouldn't have stopped, because they thought they only had one in the warlords. But when they dropped the one on Nagasaki, that ended the war right there. And this group he was with got together and they tried to get an airplane and dynamite and stuff like that so that they could drop on their own people, because they surrendered, like the Pentagon of Japan, whatever it was. And of course, like I say, they were kamikaze people, and they wore a sword, they had nice clothes, they were treated real nice because they were going to make the supreme sacrifice. And one day he was came out of his barracks with his sword on and everything, and a GI came up to him and took one look at him and went and walked off. And he said, so he went back and his war was over with. I liked him. He was a very nice fellow. And but he could see, and now that he had a wife and some children and a home and a car, and he had a good job, and he could see the difference between the way he felt back then and now. Another time we were flying down over the inland sea, and coming up, we just skirted Hiroshima, and we decided, the captain was an Australian, his name was Christie, and we had a Japanese co-pilot who were training. And I always tried to make friends with the Japanese when they were like that, because we were outnumbered them and so on like that. And so I started talking to him, and come to find out then, he was the little boy when the atomic bomb had dropped. And so he was trying to point out to me in Hiroshima where he was. And then he's telling me about how when the bomb was dropped, he and his father and mother were in the back of a house, and his grandmother and his aunt was in the front of the house, and they died. The wind killed them when the blow came, but they were shielded from the house, from everything, and so they were all right. And they took off. He says, we took off over in that valley right there, and about that time we didn't even know that the captain was listening. But about that time, the airplane banked over to to the right, and we went over Hiroshima and over the valley, and he showed us where they lived for so many years before they finally could come back and whatnot. And there are quite a few stories like that I can't remember all of them now, but I flew with the people that was on that end of the war, and they were lovely.